broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Welcome to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. I'm Jen Gaudet, your fearless host, entrepreneur, investor, and business coach. Why are we here? Because iron sharpens iron, and when I bring to you successful entrepreneurs and investors to talk about what's working in business and maybe even some of what's not, what we're able to do is learn and grow. As a result, our businesses grow, and the ripple effect impacts not only ourselves, our teams, and our families, but also our communities and our world. You're in for a treat today because I have an amazing guest. She is a serial entrepreneur, and yes, I know she said not to introduce her like that, but the reality is when you own multiple businesses, you have a different perspective. So buckle up, get your notebooks and pens handy because I'm sure you're gonna learn all kinds of amazingness. Welcome, Marcy Stoudt, founder of Revel Search and Revel Coach, to the studio. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, so I lied just a little bit. I did sneak that cereal in there. Talk to me about this. You had a successful business, and somehow you decided, well, that's not good enough. I'm going to launch a second one.
Why not?
What was that thought process? Talk to us about how that transpired.
Well, I started Revel Coach about 6 years ago with my sister, and we really aim to work with executives, and it's a leadership and business coaching company and platform. And if there's one thing we talk to CEOs about, it's about attracting and retaining top talent. So it only made sense because my first career was 22 years in corporate America in the recruiting industry. So it just made a natural sense, and we launched it last year, and I am thrilled to be here talking about both businesses.
And so talent acquisition, talent retention, that's like your sweet spot, your area of expertise. How did we get there?
I think from the very beginning. So my first go at my career, I was in the place of starting with a recruiting staffing company, and I loved that opportunity. And I loved it just because I love the industry, as well as I loved just the leadership component as our company was growing. And so I took a couple years off to stay home with my family, and what I recognized from being home for a couple years is how much I loved business, I loved solving problems, and I loved working with executives. So I decided to launch this business based on the premise of what I wish I had when I was leading very large teams and navigating my maternity leave. So initially my first business plan was all about figuring out how to help women and executives navigate maternity leaves, and it just evolved from there.
So you saw a need because it was a need that you wish you had filled. And so you saw the gap and you filled the gap. That's what entrepreneurship is. We solve problems. Folks, we solve problems. If you have a business and you're not solving big problems, that might be why your business is stuck. But Marcy, talk to me a little bit about, once you launched it, what was the biggest surprise to you? Because you came from corporate America. So, I mean, I know I came from big companies as well, and we had all the support. We had tech support and IT, and all of a sudden I had to do all the things. So talk to me, what was your biggest surprise when you moved into owning your own business, and how did you overcome that?
Well, there's a lot of surprises. So the first thing, it's a zillion times more fun than I thought it would be. So I think when I was in the corporate cushy job, entrepreneurial world just looked kind of scary to me. So taking that leap, I had more fear, not knowing if I could do it. So I think having that break at home for 2 years helped. But the first couple of years is messy. You're figuring it out, and it really takes some time and consistency to get started. And we just found, after 1 year we learned some things, 2 years we learned some things. So just kind of really tapping into that growth mindset and not giving up is what the biggest lesson we learned.
So I want to highlight that. If you are at home, not giving up. That is a theme that we have heard time and time and time again. You only fail in business when you quit, when you hang up the cleats. That's the only time that you fail, because the reality is, in business, we have a lot of challenges, and there's a lot more failing forward than what you might think. So Marcy, talk to me about that biggest fail, the one that you were like, okay, I'm done. I don't know that we can get through this. What was that day when you were like, maybe this is not for me, and how did you get through it?
All right, so failing forward, that's such a great quote. I love that, and I think that's probably the lessons we've learned throughout doing this. But I think my biggest fear and failure were wrapped into one, and it was just kind of thinking that the money would come easier. So when I was kind of gripping the bat a little too much, going from a cushy corporate job with a great salary and benefits and people that can help you, to then doing it really with my sister and a very small team, we started really counting pennies, and we were kind of focused on the dollar versus the result. And so for me, once I switched into client results and I started the flywheel of like, one client has phenomenal results and they shout it out to everyone. And so when we switched our paradigm around results, which is kind of seems obvious, but to where we stayed passionate, the result of more clients were there and it became easier and more fun. So for me, I think that was like the biggest lesson learned is like, money follows your passion. It doesn't drive your decisions.
You know, I think that's really, really powerful. So if you're at home and you heard that, that was sage advice. And one of the things we talk about a lot on this show also is be a person of value, create value, solve big problems, drive those results. Because if we chase dollars, what ends up happening is scarcity mindset, and we don't actually drive the results that we want. It truly is, how are we adding value to the world? How are we driving results that's going to give us that lagging indicator, which is the financial success in our business? If we take care of our clients are going to take care of us. We take care of our teams take care of our clients, and the clients are going to take care of us. So talk to me a little bit about that, because that is really your forte. How do you take care of your team? How do you retain teams? How do you coach clients to do the same?
Well, I think that the most important thing is knowing that each of us are different, and how we interact with each other. There's a combination of things that are really important. So for me, I find that when I really understand my team and their goals and their personalities and their strengths, making sure we're giving them assignments that they are loving, that they thrive in, because that to me is what's so important, is you want your team to be excited about client results and doing the work and things like that. So it really starts at the fundamental level, the people, like making sure the people have clarity of where they're going to go, that success comes for them, you're coaching them, you're supporting them.
And so let's dive a little deeper into that, because, you know, we all hear that. We all hear take care of our team, understand our team. Like, tell me some of the secret sauce in your team. Like, what is it that keeps them so fired up and passionate about following your vision and taking care of your people? Like, what is that within your own internal organization?
Well, it starts with we all care about the same thing. I joined this team or grew this team because I feel like as an executive coach or a leadership coach, I'm really talented in one lane, but there's a lot of things I'm not talented in. So what I decided to do is grow my team with people that have specialty niches. So we have speech writers, we have organizational specialists, we have people that are certified in different personality assessments. So with each person having a specific role, then that way when my clients are coming to Revel Coach, they may hire me as the lead executive coach, but then they can tap into our entire team. So the value of that is each person has a significant role they play, but it's in their lane that they're successful in. Like, I don't try to make somebody be somebody else on that team. And that's kind of where we are all aligned to, like, loving on our clients, helping them throughout however we can, and serving them.
So I'm going to ask a question, because what we see in corporate America a lot of times, and I've done the bigger coaching all the way down to, you know, startups. And what we see in some of the bigger companies is you hire a lot of people who are, great leaders hire people smarter than ourselves.
I love it.
I always hire people smarter than me, and we stay in our lanes. But as the company grows, sometimes those lanes get muddy, or there's competition within certain lanes. How do you adjust and adapt that, especially when you're coaching clients and they're growing to that next level? And you have different people who maybe are good in the same lane, and they're getting that competition instead of collaboration as a team.
Well, people are complicated, and so so as a result, we keep it really simple. We have basically an imaginary line, and if you're above center, good, you've got hope, you're excited, abundant mindset. Below center is more scarcity mindset, fear, doubt, shame. And so we just simplify it like that. So when you're working with somebody, are you feeling above center or below center? And I simplify it that way because then you can also say, as a result of working with somebody else, did you make them feel above center, below center? And there's a lot more depth to our coaching practice around that. But when you are feeling in a place of shame or doubt or something below center, you actually speak differently, you act differently. There's a lot of different things so what we do to teach our clients and our teams is before you interact with a person, you have to make sure you're in a place of above center mindset. Even if the event that you're dealing is stressful, you can be below center, but your thought process is around getting getting to the right place, the same outcome as your teammate. So as a result, we find that teams can really thrive together if they appreciate diversity of thought, diversity of approach, and they start at the center place of like, what do we want to accomplish, and creating that we. So we just try to get people to make sure that they really shouldn't interact with others if they're feeling below center.
I love it. And in my world, I call it above the line and below the line. So we're very much aligned in that way. And if you're at home, you're listening to this or whatnot, take note. Are you operating above the line, below the line, above center or below center? And achieving that sort of equanimity is very important so that you can lead from that place above the line, so that you can show up and lead by example for your team. But also, I really love that action step of having everyone check in. Am I above center or below center before we open our mouths and speak? Because that could influence our outcome. We do have to take a brief break, but we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEO's Truth Behind the Business. If you're just tuning in, buckle up because we've got all kinds of goodness for you. I'm here with Marcy Stoudt, and in the break, Marcy and I were talking about, hold on, we're action girls, and we talked about a lot of concepts. So Marcy, I'm going to take you, we were talking about above center, below center, and how we want to stay in that space. Tell me about a time when you were operating below the line, and what is an action for those who are below center that they can take so that they can get above?
Well, it's such a great concept, and I'm going to go back to my entrepreneurial beginning stages. And when I was sharing earlier that money was such a negative, was kind of pulling me below center. The work that I do is in the mornings. I am a person that has found meditation, I found journaling, I found mindfulness is really helpful. So a simple exercise we do for our clients, and you can do this now too. But you just kind of answer that question like, I'm the type of person, you just write a simple vision statement. I'm the type of person, like, who do you want to be more often? And then you think of an action or two that lives up to that person. So for me, my vision of starting Revel Coach, and actually both companies, is I want to be the type of person that creates opportunities for other women where they can thrive. So I did that work, and I said, I'm the type of woman that creates opportunities where people thrive. And so I then go to do my little meditation. I have this little trick I play where after I meditate, I then see the world and I just see like what kind of comes to me as a sign. And then so I end my meditation like, show me a sign. And so at this point, we're kind of DIY entrepreneurs. And my sign was my first email I got from an old intern. And she, in 2020, lost her job. And she says, hey, I decided to take your advice and I went out on my own to start my business. Would you hire me to do social media? And social media, paying other people at that point, below center. And I was like, oh no, universe, don't do this to me. But instead of having the negative reaction that I did initially, I allowed myself to go there, and then I laughed, and then I said, okay, well, what is the action above center that I can do that reflects my vision? And that's when, if you do the work pretty often, you should have a long list. So I just was like, I'm the type of entrepreneur to give opportunities to women to help them thrive. And so I said yes to her, and that changes our trajectory at Revel Coach. She started doing our branding, I started doing more coaching. The more branding she did, the more clients she brought in. And then I just started getting more obsessed about the client results, but it was all from being below center and choosing not to stay there and choosing an action above center instead of a reaction, which is like, I don't have the money, I don't have the budget, why would I want to do more social media? So the below center thought was pretty negative. But above center action can change your trajectory.
And so for those who are watching and listening at home, how can they find or create that list, that above center list, when they're in that space?
It really is doing the work when you're in a positive place as often as possible. Like, tap into your creativity. Everybody has a different style that works for them, but you just want to answer the question, who do I want to be more often? And then say, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Get your to-do list out. Like, what could be on my to-do list? Like, I often say I want to be a engaged mom that inspires their kids to do the right things. But often, you know what it's like when you have like 3 kids and you're running around and you kind of are yelling and, did you do this? The logistics mom takes over, and that's not a part of my vision. So part of my vision is inspiring my kids to do the right things when I'm not in the room. So when I'm getting kind of crazy, and I feel myself below center, I just go back to the list. It's
that you create in a positive mindset. So that's an awesome action item for everyone. If you're listening to this and you're like, wait, how do I do this? Like, when you're in a good frame of mind, when you're in a very positive mindset, what are the things that the best version of me in business, do? What are the things that I do during the day? What are the decisions that I make during the day? Create that list when you're in a good, positive frame of mind. And then when you're in that below center or that below the line thinking, like, go to that list, bring it out, and take an action. I'm a huge fan of action. That's something we talk about all the time in the show. And you know, a lot of times that negative mindset, that negative feeling, like, all we have to do is take action or change our outlook. It might be great, like whatever it is. I like to change my physiology to change my psychology. So I might go for a walk and then come back and then take action. So I've gotten my body in motion so I can take the hard action that, like, my mind is like, no, don't do this, don't do this. So thank you for that. And so, you know, as we move forward with this and we have teams, what do we as leaders do once we've kind of conquered this on our own and we're communicating above the line and we're recognizing this and bringing ourselves above center? How do we instill that in a team member when we notice that they're kind of operating below center pretty regularly?
Well, the go-to that most people say is call them out, like just confront them. And I would like to say that's an approach that could work, but really what works the best is you have to be above center in your thoughts. Like, you have to know why you hired this person in the first place. You have to understand their strengths. You have to understand what makes them tick. And when you get to that level, then you're able to actually speak to them from who you know they are, instead of speaking to them and meeting them below center. So it's a really easy thing to do if you're intentional about how you go about doing it and you're thoughtful. So time is one of the worst things right now for corporate America because so many leaders are time starved. So you're late to one meeting, the Zoom meeting goes to the next one, and you just keep rolling and you're just adding stress. So one of the best techniques I like to do is try to end every meeting 10 minutes early. So you have a little bit of a breather, so you can go outside if you want to go outside. But just be mentally engaged when you think of the next 30-minute segment with somebody. How do you want that person to feel at the end of it? And then be intentional with what questions you want to ask or what instructions you want to give them. But make sure if you just take a little bit of time, it really does not take a lot of time, you will find that 30 minutes you spend with the person creates so much less work later because the person connects with you and they're like, I got it. And then they can go off and do their job in a way that makes them, you know, makes them thrive.
You know, what really comes to mind when you say that is people remember how we make them feel much more than they remember the words that we say. And as coaches, that's something that a lot of times we have to go down and we have to dig deep. And sometimes what we find is not a very positive emotion. So it's our responsibility to bring them back up and bring them into that level of inspiration so that they can take a positive action and continue on that trajectory. So what I heard was, have a plan, be very meticulous, have an intention and a plan between every interaction. And so if you're listening to this, take notes. She is giving you pure gold. Have a plan going into your meeting. Plan to leave that person feeling inspired, motivated, above center in a way that they feel empowered and can actually go take action. And when we start with that plan and that intention in mind, it actually becomes kind of easy as we practice this. So I believe you had a nice technique for us that you were going to share.
Well, I always like sharing how the teams can work best together. One simple thing before you kind of go into the meeting is just create a quick little to-don't list. The meeting you're dreading, the other person's dreading as well. So if you get clear on the below center actions and creating that to-don't list of what you don't want to do, I don't want to be defensive. I don't want to do all the talking. I don't want to do all this stuff. That is another way, that's another technique of preparing yourself for the conversation when you're meeting with your team.
Oh, I love it, the to-don't list.
Because we're good at to-do lists.
You're right, we have a ton of them, and sometimes they're 40 pages long.
Yeah.
So create that to-don't list for yourself. Like, what do you not want to do so that you can show up in your best self and lead from that space? Any other words of advice that our listeners and viewers can take action on today?
Yeah, the other thing is valuing diversity of thought. So I think corporate America is doing a great job of recognizing and proving that diversity works. And diversity of thought is one thing, just add it to your list, because while you might do better in kind of problem solving through action and a list and let's get going, the other person receiving might do better with some time to think about it. So you might get frustrated because you're like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And the other person's not giving you the body language that they're gonna do it either. But the problem is they just think differently. So as a result, you're gonna want to spend the time to get to know them. So then that way you can say, all right, do you need 24 hours to think about it? And you can come back to me tomorrow instead of just kind of keep hitting each other at the place with complexity.
Absolutely. And so that really goes into knowing the people that you hire and hiring intentionally. I know we're going to have to take a break in a moment, so we'll probably dive into that next, because you know what, folks, when you hire intentionally and you know the people you're hiring and you get to know them, it solves a lot of problems on the back end and helps you solve things when they're little bitty problems instead of great big ones. But we will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv, click on shows, go to Power CEOs, and catch the first half of this show. Why? Because we are here with Marcy Stoudt. She is an expert at hiring the right people, getting the right team on your bus, and then retaining those people. She is an executive coach. She does a whole lot of things. She's a serial entrepreneur, and she has been spilling on how we can lead from above the line, lead from a space of abundance, and create a team culture that leads from above the line, or above center, as she says as well. Marcy, let's dive right in. Before the break, we were talking all about retention and communication and how to lead once we have a team, but how do we hire the right team to begin with?
There is nothing more important than taking the time to hire the right people. So I always say firing a person is so much easier than hiring a person.
I'm sure. So talk to us about this. Like, what I've always heard is hire slow, fire fast.
Yes. Well, so really when it comes to hiring, most times that is like an executive or a director. It's their job they need to do, but they actually have the full-time job. So they don't really take enough time to identify like who exactly will do well. So usually, so we started the executive search company, and as we work with companies, we recognize they're great at telling us the job description, but not actually the leadership description. So getting to know the culture, because you could have two people with the same resume, and one will do phenomenally, and one may potentially fail. And it's all about knowing who you want to hire and what it takes for that person to be successful.
So as an entrepreneur who may be at kind of the beginning phases of business, and we're looking at our next 3 hires, and maybe we're a solo, or maybe we have a partner, maybe we're 1, 2, 3 people, what are the key considerations for us as we grow that? I'm going to call it a baby team because it is kind of still in its infancy. What are the key things for us as entrepreneurs to consider?
Well, it's always trust. Trust is first. So making sure you spend enough time to know the person and how they handle difficult situations or stressful situations, how they get their jobs done, just to make sure it works. So trust is always, the number one thing you need to do. And then after that, I always find it's important that you get a chance to as you're getting to know the person, but really learning how they're going to do their job. Like, get them to share with you how they get results, what are the problems they solve, what are their work styles. Because if you are just guessing and going through the motions and asking generic questions, they're going to come on board, and then you spend 90 days helping them get oriented, the next 90 days kind of questioning if they're right, they're updating their resume, and things could go wrong fast unless you know from the very beginning, this is the person that I want to spend my time with, because I know they're going to be successful in their team. I see how they're going to be successful.
So one of the things that I like to do when I'm thinking about, whether I'm thinking about a business partnership or investing in a company or hiring, is I like to break bread with them. I like to go to a restaurant, have a meal. Why? Because it shows me, how do they treat the wait staff?
Oh, yeah.
Are they good people in general? Because if I don't want to have a meal with someone, I sure don't want them to be doing business with me. I don't want to have a business agreement with them. I don't want to invest in the company, because I invest in people. And so that's something that I like to do. What are some of your little sneaky hints and tricks that we could be doing that are outside of the traditional asking the question, answer the question in an interview, to find these things?
Yeah. Well, I will just share a fun story that seems similar, but we had a pretty large office, and I had my receptionist, and she was the first. She would give me thumbs up, thumbs down. So as we were hiring people, and we were able to hire a lot of people that were, maybe within their first 5 years out of college. And so we'd hire character over competency, because you can always teach competency. So my receptionist would, she'd basically give me the signal. We had a secret signal, but I would know if this was going to be a short interview or if I should spend a lot of time with this person because of how this person treated her in the lobby. Were they interacting? When I hired salespeople was what I was hiring. So we were looking for a certain person that was respectful, engaging, and if they, looked over the receptionist as a human, they were just going to then spend time with me and kind of change their behavior. But I was looking for who they were. So I definitely find, like, if you can find people on your team that are noticing them when they don't think they're interviewing, that's that's one of the great techniques.
Oh, I love it. Sneak attack. How do they treat the rest of our team? It's so incredibly important because, especially with sales, if they're going to disregard your receptionist as a number, what are they going to do to some of the leads that come in? Oh, I'm already prejudging whether or not this is a potential client or not, or they're going to act differently, and that compromises the integrity of our organization that we have the face and the name and the brand of. When you talk about hiring for character, tell me a little bit about how can we as entrepreneurs dive into that? Because what I find a lot of times when I coach people, I'm always like, hire for values. You can't train integrity into somebody. Either you got it or you don't. And so what are some of the things we as entrepreneurs have to do before we even enter in that hiring process so we know what our values are and how to find them in another human being?
Great question. So values are one of those things that feel very similar in the words, but as you go through different phases of your business, it evolves in terms of what the definition is, like the paragraphs behind the word. So even like a word like integrity, it's a pretty straightforward definition. And at the same time, the word integrity, you line up 10 companies and that's one of their core values. They have a different, description of when that applies, how that applies. So really knowing who you are, but your values should be pretty evergreen and something that motivates you. So one mistake that entrepreneurs make and companies make is they become a slogan on the wall. And you ask an employee, and you're like, hey, what are the core values? And they're like, I think they don't. So it's really important that they're rooted in a place that's like, it's inspired. It's kind of your GPS for making decisions. And when it's done well, the companies thrive.
And I love that you put it as a GPS for making decisions. I use that as a business plan. Like the right strategic plan is like putting in directions. Like you put in the right address in your GPS, you're going to get to the right place. But if you don't have a plan and you don't know where you're going, you don't have a destination, how do you know if you're on track? I want to go to Dallas and I end up, in Mexico instead, right? Because I didn't put the right directions in. So I love that you use that idea of your values being your GPS. So what does it look like? Like, talk to us a little bit more. What does it look like if we have deep-rooted values? Can you give me an example of what is versus is not that?
I think when it's deep-rooted, it's in everything you do. So to me, when trust is one that's a very strong value of mine. So when you ask employees to be like a part of your team and trust is important, you'll start seeing when people fall astray. Because what they do is like the competitive example you gave earlier, in the earlier segment, you have two people working on the same project, and that competitiveness, people start hiding information, that limited mindset. Where if trust is at the foundation, let's win together, let's raise the bar and let's sprint to the finish line together. Competition's awesome in the workplace until trust is missing. So you just have to look for real examples, like when you find the word that you lean in on, making sure you see it in many different facets than just the obvious paragraph that describes it.
And of course, if you're going to use that example, I'm going to go even further. It has to be in your comp package. If you're paying based off of who's the number one, number two, number three, number four producer in a sales team, then you are not fostering collaboration, you're fostering competition. So no, if competition is where you're going and you're just producing numbers, that's one thing. But if you want a collaborative team, then you want to pay and reward the team as a whole for a result instead of an individual contributor.
Yeah. So my first career was in staffing for 22 years. I hired a lot of people. I had a team of about 300 people when I was 30 years old. And my favorite thing to do was the first interview question when somebody wanted to get promoted. And everybody knew this was not a secret. But my first question was, who because of you is more successful because they worked with you? And they had to list names. So all that meant to me is that it was their leadership story, their impact story. So before they could get promoted, I need to know they had 2, 3, 4 people that, as an example, this person has more sales result, this person got promoted, this account. And you want to have a culture, and for what we were looking for, a culture of everybody leading everybody instead of the boss leading the team. And so to me, don't have it a secret. Tell people what the interview question's going to be.
Don't know. Well, that goes against trust, and trust is your core value. So of course you're not going to have it as a secret. You're going to share, hey, this is what, if you want a promotion, I'm going to ask you this question. If you can't answer it, and you can't answer it honestly, and I'm going to fact check you, by the way, because that's one of mine. I'm like, trust but verify.
Yeah, trust and verify. Trust and verify.
Trust but verify. You know, I really appreciate that. So know your core values and make sure that your core values are embedded into everything you do, and everything from comp packages to hiring to promoting to how we treat our customers. And that's really important. And we are about to have to break, but what's the action that we can take to ascertain, are my values deeply rooted today in our business?
I mean, to me, I do find when you look within, you're going to get some information. But if you ask the people around you a 360, have them describe it to you, ask for feedback, have that level of vulnerability, because so often the values and trust, like your vision statement, that's known by you. The actions that you do is seen by others. So sometimes when you're below center, your action might not line up to your values. So get feedback from people that you trust, and that just helps you. Am I living a life of trust? Am I kind of exemplifying that? Because when you are constantly getting feedback, you do find yourself self-correcting yourself, and then that way, you can live out your values, and you're an example for your company.
I love it. Get feedback. Be vulnerable. Get feedback from people other than yourself. We all think that we're portraying a certain way, but it's just like with brand, right? If we have a brand is actually other people's perception of me, not my perception of me. I can want my brand to stand for something else, but I regularly poll my clients, people who don't know me, people who've met me only once, people on social media, like what are the 3 words that come to your mind when you see me, when you see my brand? And that's something that we want to do within our organizations as well. Get feedback. Don't be afraid of it, and listen, because the reality is perception is reality when it comes to our brand values. What are we exhibiting and how are we showing up in the world? We will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. You are in for a treat. We are here talking with Marcy Stoudt. She is the founder of 2 companies, and we have been talking all about how to hire the right people, how to know whether our values are instilled within our business, and so much more. But in the break, Marcy and I were talking about the difference between hiring as an entrepreneur at the beginning of our business versus as an executive when we've already got several employees. And we may know something about, or one of our team members knows the first couple of hires, but once we've got 25, 50 people underneath us and we're hiring again, we don't know these applicants from a can of paint, honestly. So how do we change the way we look at hiring as entrepreneurs as we grow our business, Marcy?
Well, I'm learning the lesson right now as our teams are expanding, both Revel Coach and Revel Search. We've been hiring coaches and also entrepreneurs to be on our search side. And as an entrepreneur, you do so many things on your own. You're spinning all these plates and just kind of makes sense. Your spreadsheet makes sense until you start expanding. And then you realize the bottleneck that you are. So it's really important that when you want to take that leap from being kind of a small team, say less than 5 people, to then a company, you actually do the work to recognize where their standard operating procedures and get your company all set. And then you're in the position to start hiring for the gaps instead of that friend that happens to do something like, oh, why don't you work for me? You really have to be intentional when you go from the small team of 5 to then the vision that you have, which might be 25 plus employees.
And so we talk about standard operating procedures a lot. Standard operating procedures are so incredibly important, and we talk about it in the AI world right now. I mean, I have an AI company, and one of the things that is important for people to know is people think that AI is going to solve their problems, but they don't have any standard operating procedures, or their SOPs are so ancient. They're no longer what's happening in the business. So you're training a computer on old processes that are inefficient. That's not going to solve your problem. So talk to our entrepreneurs and executives, like, how often should we be looking at our SOPs? What does it look like to even start that process before we go hire?
Well, I am currently about 5 years into the one company, and I wish I had started 3 years ago. I would say I am learning my lesson right now, and just without having one, the business is so dependent on you. Like, I started this practice because I really wanted to have a lifestyle where I could make a lot of money, I could be engaged with my family, do the things I love, but having that entrepreneurial freedom. And the more successful I became, the more the business depended on me. And it wasn't until I was at this moment now where I'm like, I got to do something. So I hired somebody as a fractional COO to help me kind of with this process. And it's just funny because the conversations, we were very different. I'm more like in the disc world, hi, she's very detailed oriented. And every time I get super annoyed with her because she's asking some questions, I'm like, just know you're doing your job. Like, I know I need you because you are really bothering me. But those processes, so since we've done that, now it's been so easy to hire people. So I found my way of getting out of the business so I can spend that quality time going to dinner with people, being accessible for my people. Because if you don't know the person you're going to hire, you're going to squeeze in an interview. They're going to say the right things. You're like, all right, I like you, let's go. And it's the wrong person. So by allowing those SOPs to run the business, I pulled myself out. I hired a couple assistants to help with some other things, but I really can focus on the people.
Yeah, and you know, in the break we were talking about, like when I do business now, I have 7 conversations with somebody before I ever press go. And the reason is because people can fool you for a couple conversations. They're really good. People have gotten really good at sales, have gotten really good at how to interview. And once you've had more conversations, that's when the inconsistencies showed up. That's when they get kind of comfortable around you and the things slip out. And I think that's been really, really a game changer for me, you know, and it truly is hiring slow, partner slow, be very intentional. And I'm a fast start. Like I'm like, let's get it done and next. And that's who I am as a human being. It took a lot for me to shift towards the slow roll on hiring and partnering, but I got burned so many times doing it the other way. And it's because I was just looking for that result, that fast result. But the fast result isn't necessarily what's going to get your marathon of a business moving forward. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to ask you, is there a resource for people who are watching this, who this is, maybe they've heard this, but they've never taken action on this? Like, what is something that people can do to get them out of the knowledge, I don't know enough, I'm not sure if I'm ready, analysis paralysis, into action on some of these items?
Well, that was a loaded question.
Oh, I know.
When you said resource, I will say my favorite resource is a technology that I have licensed to called Cloverleaf. And all that it is it's an AI generated tool, but the backdrop of it is personality assessments. So they have 10 personality assessments, and when you complete them, that tool understands and knows who you are, and it gives you can query it and say, how do I handle overwhelm? How do I have difficult conversations? But when you open that up for your team or a candidate, it actually just tells, good and bad, this is who the person is. No bad. It's actually just, this is who the person is. This is how they make decisions. This is how they think. So I've really leaned on that tool. I use it for all of my clients, both search and coach, because what it does is just demystifies people, and it helps you know where the gaps are in the team. Diversity of thought is the biggest thing. You can see on a grid where everybody, charts. And then as a result, you're like, well, no wonder we clash, right? Like, you need data and I need relationship. So when we're doing a meeting, like how you adjust your style. So for me, that really has helped a lot, like growing the business, knowing what I need, people being less complicated by that.
I really like that. And it's so important that we have diversification of thought in business, because otherwise we become an echo chamber and we don't grow.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest mistakes I see in business, I'm in coaching too, is we put a team of executives who are yes people around us because we just have this ego about our business and we want to be right. It's not about us being right. It's about getting it right for our customers. And that means we need to surround ourselves by people who don't think like us, who are going to challenge us and are going to look from a different perspective. So I really like that you have a tool. And that tool was, again, just for everyone so that they can hear it at the same time.
Cloverleaf.me. And if you go to my website, you can get a free version on my website. You can kind of take it by yourself. But cloverleaf.me.
And what's
tool.
Your website, Marcy?
Oh, revelcoach.com, and then therevelsearch.com. And just, little heads up for everybody. If you think you're going to start a business, just grab the website. So I have to add therevelsearch.com because...
Absolutely. The domain name is everything.
Yeah. I did the LLC, 5 years ago. somebody else is sitting on that website right now. So
oh, nice. Gotta love that.
It's empty.
I've
empty.
made that mistake many a times. And like lately it's been even worse because so many people have gone and grabbed all the domains. And so, you're having to pay out an arm and a leg when you come up with a new idea. But so Cloverleaf, and go ahead and take this assessment yourself. Understand yourself. The first step for us to communicate and to hire and to partner right is for us to understand our own communication styles. And so many times, I'm sure you see the same thing, Marcy, like so many entrepreneurs don't understand their communication style even, or they think they're a type of communicator and actually they don't like to receive communication in the way that they think they do. I can't tell you how many people want blunt feedback, but I'm like, are you sure? Yes, give it to me, because I'm a blunt person. I am a direct person. I don't make any bones about it. And so I ask twice. I've gotten to where I ask twice, are you sure you want to know? And then I go in and I just tell them, because I'm very direct. And I know that about me and I can't change that. That's just who I am. And they always hate it. And I'm like, so obviously you do not like to receive blunt, direct feedback, because here we are in a conflict when I asked you twice, right? So it's important that we know that about ourselves. I know that about myself. So my COO has a very flowery way of saying things. So she's my interpreter in certain communication styles with certain team members, with certain clients, with certain partners, because if I come in and say something, it's going to cause a bomb to go off between us, whereas she can communicate effectively what I'm looking for in a way that's a little bit more flowery and cushy and all the things, and get the job done. So I think it's very important, and that's a great resource. Marcy, we are towards the end of our segment, and how can people reach out to you if they want to learn more? Why should people reach out to you? Like, who are the people who you want to reach out to you?
Well, I am accessible by both my websites. We have contact forms, and then on LinkedIn is kind of a little bit more my channel, so you can find me at Marcy Stoudt. But why people should reach out to me, I always say we solve 3 problems. The first one's anything tied towards revenue growth. So if you're an executive or you're on a team and you care about top line revenue growth, that's something we're really passionate about. We're also passionate about anything around the people plan. And this is for both companies, when you're looking to hire and you're also looking to coach. But anything around culture, people plan, if that's important to you, that's very important to us. And then the third one, which is really my favorite, as a busy executive with young kids and everything like that, I have learned the technique to take a busy mind like mine and how to slow it down so I don't feel overwhelmed. I can find joy in any moment. I actually love some of the stressful situations I get myself into, because when I go below center, I'm like, what am I learning from this? So that's really the third problem we like to solve, is just helping people have the mindset that this is your only life, like go for it. And so those are the 3 things we do, and both companies work together, and we serve each other, because one likes to hire and the other one likes to kind of retain and develop people.
Fantastic. Marcy, thank you so much for your expertise. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, this was so great. And so thank you. Great to see you.
Absolutely. And you, yes, you, I know it's that time. All good things do come to an end. But we're about action here. You have heard Marcy and I chat about so many topics, about knowing your core values, about rooting them deeply into everything you do, every process in your business, every way you interact with other human beings, like deep root your values, how to hire slow, what to look for, how to have the questions so that you make sure you have the right people on your team, and then how to retain those people. Take action on one thing you heard. If it's going to Cloverleaf and understanding your communication style, or having your team take the assessment, that might be your action. But knowledge is just a small part of the equation. The magic happens when we take action and implement. So your job right now is to take action on one thing you heard today to get you moving forward, positively create that momentum, that positive momentum that is going to create your inevitable success today. And we, unfortunately, are about to end, but you will find us same time, same station next week. And until then, win today, win this week, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.